Hello and welcome to Inspire Online Book Club. I'm Michelle Dunstan and I'll be hosting the chat today. Today we're delighted to be joined by two guest readers. We have Rachel Hibbard and Nikki Doyle. Hi Rachel, Nikki.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi.
And from Inspire we have a couple of our regulars. We have Fiona Littlewood and Claire Saribi. And this time for this book club we are going to be talking about our November title, the psychological thriller The Catch. I have my well-thumbed copy here in front of me. Actually, excitingly, I interviewed TM Logan for our book talk series that will be going on the website shortly after this, so look out for that because it really was. I think it really was fascinating. I think readers will agree. But before we delve into this book, I just wanted to mention how popular psychological thrillers seem to have been during this time. And I know, particularly with this author, Fiona, we found that, haven't we?
We have. I monitor the statistics of the e-resources that we have, and I've just had a look and discovered that The Catch is actually the top issuing ebook of all time, of Inspire's all time.
Brilliant.
And e-audio, which was at number 6, which is pretty good, today that is also at number 1.
Wow.
And closely followed by The Holiday, which is another one of TM Logan's books. We didn't do that as a book club choice, but we did have it as a multi-use title some months ago. It was one of the first ones that we had, and the audio is in that's done really well. That's in 2nd position, and the ebook is in 3rd position. So well done, TM Logan.
Yeah, excellent. It'll be delighted to hear that. Okay, so The Catch, it tells the story, doesn't it, of Ed, this doting father who meets his daughter's new boyfriend for the first time. On the outset, this new boyfriend, Ryan, he seems completely perfect to everyone else. But Ed has a bad feeling about him, a very bad feeling. But we'll try not to give any spoilers, but it is difficult with a book like this, so do be warned. So what did we think about the book overall? Did we enjoy it? Claire, can we start with you?
Yeah, I raced through this book. So, as always, I listened to The Catch as an e-audio. And when I started, it's over 10 hours long, and I thought, gosh, this is going to take forever listening to it. And I actually raced through it in I think I did it in 3 goes. So it's really fast and pacey, and it just flew by. It really didn't take much effort to get into it at all. So I think the plot just pulls you along, and you just want to listen to a little bit more, and then before you know it, you've read it all.
Yeah. No, I found the same actually. I read the proper version, and it was nice to hold a real book. Sorry, the real version. It was nice to hold a real book, but even though it's not slim, it just really got me through. Nikki, what did you think?
I thought it was a very good book, actually. Yeah, I wasn't sure initially because I don't really read these types of books normally, but I really enjoyed it. I really got into it, and it was quite gripping. Yeah.
Rachel, what were your thoughts on it? Did you enjoy it overall?
Well, I read it in 2 sittings because I found it unputdownable. There's all sorts of things I could criticise about it, but at the end of the day, if I've read that one, you can't see it unless I take the picture off, I then read The Holiday, and then I read 29 Seconds, or whatever it is, and then I read The Lies, and I don't usually do that. So, Mr. Logan can go on holiday on the benefits of how many of his books I bought in the last month. But there was something very pacey about it and very compulsive about it. And that is true to a greater or lesser degree in his other books. He obviously likes an urgent time framework, and somehow it draws you in. And so on the positive side, I obviously enjoyed it if I went off and bought 3 other books, one after another, of his, because I just thought I want a bit more of this. there's loads to criticise, and one or two people who've read it have criticised it, but it's a good read. It's not a heavy read, it's a good read, and I really enjoyed it. So there you go.
Brilliant. Well, we'll probably get into some of those like criticism, but yeah, I think that's telling when you want to read the other titles as well. Fiona, did you feel the same about it?
I did. I do like psychological thrillers, and it's something that I've read for a number of years. I'm a bit surprised that they've continued to be so popular, because there's always some kind of twist to the story, and so I find that I'm constantly looking for it and trying to wondering whether there is a character in there, you know, some little character on the sidelines who's going to end up being very significant. There weren't very many characters in this, so it was quite difficult to do that, but I did find that the author really was very good at making me doubt whether it was Ed that was a bit bonkers. I believed him to begin with, and I thought, well, if he's getting a bad feeling about Ryan, then there must be something there. But as the story progressed, I started thinking, now, is it Ryan or is it Ed? So I quite liked the fact that I wasn't all that sure. And yeah, I was quite happy I listened to it, got through it quite quickly, because you just always want to know what's coming next.
Yeah, because it's interesting, because it starts with this little prologue at the beginning. And so you know right from the outset that something bad is going to happen. You just don't know the who and the why. Yet, I mean, for me, it did keep it going. What did we think about setting it out at the beginning like that? Did that prologue work for everybody? Rachel, what did you think?
Just opening the prologue to remind myself. I mean, I am 4 books in, you know. I can't.
Oh yeah, of course.
I don't really like the prologues, generally on books like that. And no, I don't think it did a lot for me. I think I'd have been happier, in fact, to just start number 1 Friday. Personally, but you know, different people have different views. But I would have read it at the time, but I wasn't remembering it, and I didn't flip back to it. But yeah, I know for me it didn't work, that bit, that 1 page. But the other 420 odd were fine.
So that's not bad. It's not bad going.
No, it's not bad.
No. I mean, I have to say, I was quite surprised that, like, then through the whole of it, it still kept me going, wanting to know the answer to that question. We've all said we was quite hooked by it. Nikki, do you think you did a good job in keeping us really hooked on the story and keeping that tension sustained?
I do actually, yeah. I think it did have quite a pace to it right from the start. I'd say that it twisted and turned a little bit, and especially at one point, I really thought that they were going to make up Ryan and Ed, but they well, I'm not going to say too much, but I really thought they were going to. And I did think at one point that it was in Ed's head, because it just didn't seem, it seemed far-fetched, you know what I mean, that it could possibly be anything but that Ryan was a good man, you know, but yeah, there you go.
There wasn't anything that was really very concrete, was there? There was something to do with the cat, but you know, it could have been in his imagination. So there wasn't really a lot to suggest that Ryan definitely was this character other than what he portrayed. So that was what gave me the doubt.
Yeah, I thought that.
There was very little depth in the characters, wasn't there? You didn't get the personalities as very 3D, so you didn't know what was just a superficial perception and what was reality. It was like a top coating. So at any time it could have twisted and turned anywhere. And I suppose that's where the sort of interest in keeping going and finding out what was really happening came from for me.
Yeah, I thought that, because I actually asked him about that, because I did feel as I was reading it, and I did say this to him, that he was kind of playing with us, wasn't he? I mean, I suppose that's what a psychological thriller author is going to do, you know. And I asked him, you know, was sometimes like you chuckling to himself when he's writing it, thinking, yeah, now I've got you, because I was like believing one thing and then another. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you said, Rachel, about the characters, because it does focus on a very small set of characters. We don't get to learn huge amounts about them. But I mean, for me, I was drawn into their stories and this premise. Claire, what did you think about the characters?
Well, I think we got to know Ed in more depth, you know, because it's narrated from his point of view for a lot of the book. Yeah, and I was on Ryan's side, really. I thought that we were seeing Ed descend into sort of a depression or, you know, some sort of paranoia. I couldn't see that he was really justified in his beliefs. But we didn't really have a lot of the backstory to Ryan until towards the end. And, you know, there comes a point in the book where it sort of flips on its head, and you get a bit more detail there. But I did think that you could you know, feel the family dynamics. I thought that was all very believable. I thought that characters were believable and the relationships were believable. But like Rachel said, we didn't really dig deep into all the characters because it's really quite plot driven. And I think that's what keeps you, you know, turning the page.
Yeah, because it's a very relatable premise, isn't it, for something like this? You know, it's a normal thing that a lot of people can relate to, a protective parent. And actually that was something that's quite interesting because Tim Logan himself has a daughter of a similar age. I did wonder if she's worried about introducing boyfriends to him. So that was
it's more the boyfriends who would worry, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
A bit.
Killed her love life.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I could relate to that theme. I think it was nice not nice because it's quite dark, obviously, but it was interesting to set it in something so relatable. Did the rest of you relate to the stories that were happening?
Yeah, I think so. What I did find, though, is that some of the characters' actions became a bit extreme, and that started with Ed. I found the things that he was doing to begin with were quite believable, but he seemed to really take it a bit too far. And I was thinking, would you really do that? But that's the thing that made me feel like maybe I've got this whole thing wrong. Maybe it's not quite. And as I was saying about the twist in the story, I'm waiting for there to be some kind of a twist. So yeah, perhaps that was why that extreme behaviour was there. But I think, what's the name? Abby also, towards the end of the book, I won't give anything away, but there was something that she did that I was just thinking, you just wouldn't do that, you know, but she had to do it to allow the story to play out. I think maybe you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think towards the end there was a lot of, you had to have a willing suspension of disbelief because it wasn't so based in reality. It gradually disintegrated into sort of psychological mayhem, really. And it's interesting because I can't remember who it was now. Somebody said Ed was the main character, and yes, he was the main character, although we're constantly being told to look at Ryan as the main character, and yet we saw very little of Ed towards the end, which is unusual. With the main character, you would actually see how it progresses right to the last page of the book, or nearly the last page, and we didn't. And it was very lame, really, wasn't it, on him individually at the end, and that made it quite curious.
And on the moors at the end, I was constantly waiting for somebody to pop up, you know, somebody that I thought was kind of done with and in the past, or they somehow going to come back.
I was kind of hoping the same thing, but I think that would have been taking it a bit too far. Yeah. But I really was hoping that, you know, that a certain character was going to make a comeback and have a happy ending.
Yeah.
But alas.
But I think that's it, isn't it? As it got towards the end, and we were talking about his suspension of disbelief. I think that is one of the things, though, because it is plotted so well, isn't it? That you're very entertained by it, and you're just wanting to keep going through this story and find out where it goes. Did you think that, Nikki?
Yeah, I did, very much so, and that's quite a thing for me because I have a habit of not finishing books. So I finished this one. I knew I sort of had to anyway, but it wasn't a chore to finish it. And I really like the fact that it was set in Nottingham, which I think I can say, because I know Nottingham quite well. So that was really a big thing for me, local. Sort of,
I thought it was interesting how much detail there was in there where he went in Nottingham, what he did in Nottingham. And then with his book, The Holiday, I mean, I don't know where the place where he's supposedly set it, but I imagine it's also a place, I would guess it's also set in an area he knows very well. So it's obviously an important thing to him as the writer to actually be able to geographically visualise things rather than having generic streets and generic roads. And it did appeal to me. That's actually why I picked it up in the first place, was because it was a local author, and the fact that he went into this restaurant that I know, or went up onto this estate that I know where it is, and I've been up there and so on, it made it very realistic, and you can imagine the timings and the stress of it all. So yeah, I thought that was interesting, and I think it's probably and also this urgency, the days, I mean, The Holiday does the same thing, but there's an urgency of time. There's a specific time limit, and that's a very clever mechanism to be able to put a sort of artificial impetus in it in some way.
I think it is interesting to think about plays, because you know the author himself does live in West Bridgford, you know, and it is his first story that's set where he lives. It's interesting to watch the interview actually with him, what he says about that. But I found that I'm just picturing it in those places. I didn't know if I was going to enjoy that, because often with a book I want to be transported somewhere else, you know, but actually I really did. I'm like, oh, it's in Copper, I've been in there. It's like, oh, it's on the number 10 bus. Yeah. Because he's also in Beeston, isn't he, as well, Claire, I think, at one point?
Yeah, Beeston, Bestwood. He's all over the place, isn't he? Peak District, all the places that we know. And, of course, he talks a lot about Bridgford Hall and, you know, the park. And for our local listeners, they'll recognise that because it's near the library and the cemetery. You know, we all know those places. And normally for me, I find that strangely a bit distracting if I'm reading a book and I know where the places are, because it's almost like I've got all that information that I'm bringing to this, you know, additional information that I'm bringing to the story. But it worked for me with this, and it's like you say, Michelle, I could really visualize exactly where the characters were and how it would, you know, map out, you know, in terms of place. And I really did enjoy that. I thought it brought an extra dimension to the book for me personally.
Yeah, I liked it too, because quite a lot of books are, you know, centred on London or maybe Brighton or a fictitious village in the southwest, but I'd never read anything that focused on Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. So I quite like that aspect of it.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I don't know if you can do this without giving spoilers away, but just in general, when we get to the ending, were you satisfied with the ending? Because it's always a big thing. I know I've got a friend in my other book club, and honestly, I don't think anybody's ever written an ending that she's pleased with. It's always a tricky one to do. But I mean, me myself, I was quite, because it took me through to the end, and I'm like, yeah, that's done it for me. But what did anybody else think about the ending? Was you happy with the ending? Was there any loose ends? Without trying to give away too many spoilers, Nikki, did you enjoy the ending?
Me, yeah, I did. It's a bit, I don't want to say too much because there's something in the ending that is a little bit, I suppose, sad. I suppose you can say that. I'm not going to say how. But I like the very ending, when the last sort of page or so, when you sort of see what happened next. And I quite like that. That was quite a good sort of twist, actually.
Yeah, I thought that was a good way to finish it off, really.
Yeah, finished it off nicely. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't want to say
so
too much.
Yeah, I know, it is difficult when you get to the ending, Nick, isn't it? But I think in general, we all do seem to have enjoyed it. I mean, you've already said, Rachel, that you've already been reading more of his books. Would the rest of you, does it make you want to read more by T.M. Logan?
I would, yeah. I think I don't know about straight away, but I definitely would. Yeah, he's quite keen, especially someone, Rachel just said how she's quite impressed and how well they're doing in the sort of book charts and everything like that. So
yeah, it's fantastic.
I think I would read another one. I tend to sort of intersperse things like this with other things that are perhaps a bit more challenging. You know, I like things like the Booker shortlist and, you know, things that have maybe been won a prize, but they can often be a more difficult read. Whereas something like this, it's quite easy. It's a page turner. You know you're going to be gripped, you know what you're getting, and it's just kind of a nice, easy read. So I think, yeah, I perhaps would try another one. I might try The Holiday because we know that we've actually got that.
They are good holiday reads, so you could read The Holiday on holiday.
Yes, I could if I ever get to go on holiday.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I thought about why these psychological thrillers at this time might be so popular. It's a bit like, isn't it? It's like the Netflix thrillers and the Sky Atlantic whodunits that's out at the minute. I think because they get you hooked on a premise and then you've just focused on it, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? You forget about everything else and you grip with the story. Do you know what I'm saying, Claire? Do you know what I mean?
I think it's escapism, isn't it? Yeah. And entertaining and a little bit of suspense. And I do think that it was well written. I thought it was very well written and very well planned out. And I think what Rachel mentioned about the countdown, where it's, you know, 10 days to the wedding, you know, 9 days to the wedding, it's building up the tension, it's building up the suspense, and yeah, it's just a really good, as you say, page turner.
Yeah, I think that's what we need right now as well, isn't it? Yeah. Page turner, escape.
Yes, it's not in-depth literature, but it was good fun to read. Really good fun to read, and there's a place for that too, as well as reading classical or classic literature and so on. It was a good page turner. It's also light enough that you could read it while you were travelling, not while you were driving, obviously, but while you're travelling, and. Yeah, it is pleasant, and it makes you guess, and it's quite it's challenging in that sense. I did feel the beginning and the middle was better than the end, personally, but I did have to get to the end. There was no suggestion that I would not get to the end.
Yeah, I think you just had to, didn't you, to find out what had happened. Sorry, my other computer just cut out then. Yeah, we're actually running out of time now, unless anybody had any more burning points to raise now. But I think we've had a bit of a consensus with this one, haven't we? And like you said, Rachel, there is a place for this type of book alongside your other reads, and yeah, it's kept us all entertained, I think. So I think that is all we've got time for. So there we have it, The Catch by T.M. Logan. I'd like to say thanks to my fellow book clubbers. It has been a lot of fun. I do hope that the viewers have enjoyed listening to us about this. Do let us know what you think, though. If you disagree with anything we've said, or if you agree, post it in the comments on Facebook. That'd be fantastic. Do look out for the interview with T.M. Logan that will be posted shortly. Now, we're going to take a break for the book club in December. So we can all get on and read whatever we like over the Christmas period. But do look at the website because we've got loads of recommendations if you are stuck for what to read next. But I can tell you about our January read. We'll actually be reading a non-fiction title as a bit of a departure. I think we've only done one non-fiction, and that was a memoir. And this is completely different. We'll be reading try and say it properly, Traces, the memoir of a forensic scientist and criminal investigator by Patricia Wiltshire. So yeah, that is available now, isn't it, Fiona, to download?
It is, yes.
Excellent. So yeah, so we'll be looking for the issues rising on that as people download it. Okay, so once again, thank you to you guys for talking to me, and thank you for everybody that's watching. We will hope to see you next year, and a Merry Christmas to everybody. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.